Assalomu alaykum hammaga. Sekin-sekin odamlar qo'shilyapti va bir necha daqiqada assalomu alaykum Bobirjon.
Assalomu alaykum.
Xo'p, birinchi o'rinda sizni ozgina tanishtirib o'tsam, keyin o'zingiz haqida ko'proq gapirib berasiz audiyensga. Xo'p, уже postlardan bilganlaringdek, bugun Bobirjon Baxtiyorov ko'pchilik hali shu paytgacha menimcha tanimagan, endi lekin o'sha kecha aytib o'tilgandek, endi sekin-sekin tanishib boshlayapsizlar, kanallarda yaxshi narsalar ulashyapti. Demak, Bobirjon Baxtiyorov hozirda Johns Hopkins universiteti talabasi, bugungi spikerimiz, bugungi mehmonimiz. Xo'p, odamlar qo'shishda davom etyapti. Bobirjon, unisi boshlasangiz bo'laveradi.
Xo'p, prezentatsiyamni ochaversam bo'ladimi? Screenimni share qilsam bo'ladimi?
Yes.
Okay. Can you see my screen? Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see.
Okay, all right.
Bitta narsani tekshirib qo'yaylik. Agar Bobirjon hamda men ovozim yaxshi keladigan bo'lsa, oxirgi bitta narsani tekshirib qo'yaylik. Hamma oxirgi postdagi plyus yoki minus jo'natib yuborsin, agar ovozimiz yaxshi keladigan bo'lsa.
Xo'p. Let me know when I can start, and then I'll get started. Can I get started? Is everything okay? I cannot hear you.
Xo'p. Bizda ozgina texnik muammolar bo'ldi. Assalomu alaykum. Ovozim eshitilyaptimi endi?
Ha, kelyapti.
Assalomu alaykum Bobir. Yaxshimisiz? Charchamayapsizmi?
Rahmat.
Bugungi sessionimizga xush kelibsiz. Xudo xolasa ko'pchilik kutib turgandi sizni. Kechadan beri kommentariyalar ham tinmaydi. Bobir aka qachon chiqadi deb. Shuning uchun xudo xolasa hamma kutgan session bo'ladi. Rahmat kattakon sizga ham tashrifingiz uchun. Xudo xolasa shu 1 soat, 2 soat davomida hammaga yordam beradigan, aytadigan tips, hintslaringiz uchun kattakon rahmat. Ovozimiz yaxshi kelayotgan bo'lsa, boshlasak bo'ladi. Hozir Jamshidda ham ozgina problemalar bo'ldi, shuning uchun chiqdilar. Hozir kommentariyada iltimos meni ovozim eshitilayotganligi yoki Bobir ovozi eshitilayotganligi haqida ozgina bildirib yuborsalaringiz, biz keyin bemalol boshlayverardik. Hop, you can start debdilar. Audible. Boshlayversak bo'ladi, bemalol.
All right, hop. Hozir boshlayman. Okay. Share my screen. Hozir. Okay, all right. I will just. Okay, I hope everybody can see my screen. Okay, I'll just get started. So the title of my presentation today is How to Not Be a One-Hit Wonder. What I mean by this is a lot of times when people apply to big top universities, before I introduce myself, I'll of course introduce myself. I just want to explain the title of my presentation. When people apply to these big universities, these prestigious universities, they just shotgun it. The term shotgun meaning they just apply to as many as big schools, hoping to get into at least one, and then they people a lot of times look for luck in these prestigious universities, which is true for most of the cases. Like, you do get lucky sometimes you don't. But there is a way to maximize your chances of getting in, so you don't only depend on one prestigious university, so you can maximize your chances of getting into multiple top universities. that is like basically the title of my presentation, and that's what I will be going into throughout the presentation. Okay, all right. First of all, let me just introduce myself and who I am and basically everything that way. My name is Bobirjon. I am originally from Uzbekistan, Samarkand. I'm from Samarkand, Tailok. I went to 14th public school before I moved to the US. And I did move to the US approximately like 8-9 years ago. And when I came here, I immigrated with my family, and I went to high school here. I went to middle school here. So I did apply as a domestic student. There's one misconception that I want to clear. Because there, like throughout these sessions that you guys have, there were some people who were like domestic students, some international. I'm a domestic student. I applied as a US resident from here. And these were my stats. My stats were 1580 SAT with 800 math, 780 English. I took IELTS a few times this summer when I went to Uzbekistan. I got 8.5 in IELTS, and super score was 9. So because I tried to achieve that 9, which was kind of impossible, but I'll do it soon. And then I had a bunch of AP courses that I took. I took about 12, but these were the ones that I took the AP exam for, and I got a good grade on it that I submitted to universities. So these were some of the stats I have. Now, before I continue like to my main part of my presentations, I want to explain something. There's a lot of misconceptions in Uzbekistan about how it works, international versus domestic students. Is one easier than the other? How does the admissions process work? I will be 100% honest with you. As an international student, it is easier for you to get in. Now, I will explain to you why. I don't know if this is a common knowledge, but from what I have heard, Guzalfon was also an American resident who moved back to Uzbekistan, went to a presidential school, and then applied as an international student. When you're a domestic student, you are competing against everyone else like yourself. What do I mean by this? Do you see these AP classes right now? You go, okay, this kid had a lot of AP classes, which is the reason he got in. Well, not really. If all of my other classmates who are top of my class are taking these classes, it doesn't make me any unique. It doesn't make me better than them or worse than them. So I'm on the same field as everybody else when it comes to everybody, for example, applying from New York. When you're applying for Uzbekistan, you are compared to other applicants. It means, for example, if I have to fill up a class of 100 students, I'm not going to take 100 students from New York. Let's say the 100 students from New York have 100 averages, like 4.0, 1600 GPAs, but there's some people in other regions. It doesn't matter how well their stats are. I will look for people of other places. What do I mean by this? What I mean by this is you have a better shot from Uzbekistan because you can stand out from everybody else. In terms of academics, in terms of your essays. For example, in the last, I would say, a year or two, it has become extremely selective, even in Uzbekistan, because now there's a growing population of applicants who are very, very serious about applying to top universities. And basically, just give me 1 second. 1 second, everyone. I'm so sorry. Okay, I'm so sorry. I hope you guys can still see my screen. But basically, just know that like there's some facts and myths about applying as an international and a domestic student, because it's easier to stand out when you're an international student with all the extracurriculars you have, the classes you have taken, and the SAT scores you have, because not a lot of people around you have the same thing. Another schools do until this day, even after affirmative action, is they really love diversity. What do I mean by this? What I mean by this is that they love taking students from different parts of the world. If you go into, you can fact check me right now. Go into your Instagram, go into any university, pick a university, Harvard, Princeton, Yale, any of the top university you can think of. Scroll down to their post about the class of 2027, class of 2026, class of 2025. One thing that you know is that they take pride in how many students they accepted across how many countries and states. What do I mean by this? It means, let's say I am the only student applying from Uzbekistan. As long as I meet their basic criteria, I will get in compared to somebody else in the US who have way higher grades than me, because that one country is going to count in my statistics as a diverse university. Even after affirmative action, students can still write in their essays about their culture to maximize their chances of getting in, which I will be explaining about the essay part as we go on. But this is just some facts and myths that I wanted to clear out as somebody who's applying internationally. Now, is there downsides to applying internationally? Of course there is. For example, you have to learn English from ground up. You have to learn English. You have to take SAT. For somebody like me, I already spoke English because of the curriculum that I was in here, and I didn't have to study as much as you guys did in order to get a better score on the SAT. Do I have advantages? Of course I do. It's like you have to make sure that you understand the pros and cons of everything that there is. Now, let's move on to the more important part of the admissions process. Me personally, every now and then I go to the admissions officer at Hopkins to volunteer, to help around like the welcome desk. The only reason I do it is to get an insight on the admissions process, to get an insight and talk to the admissions officers. I kind of go there to volunteer. I was very, very obsessed. 2 years ago right now, I was obsessed with getting into top universities. I didn't have anybody helping me. I didn't have any I didn't do with any consultation firms. It was just all me by myself. So I was like all on my own. So after even I got in, I was still very interested in the process. So I would go to the admissions officer a lot. So from these little talks I had, I can tell you the most important factors as a student from Uzbekistan you need in order to get into these top universities. Let's start with your, let's start with the most obvious one. Let's start with GPAs, okay? A lot of people applying from Uzbekistan, they have really good GPAs. You know why? Because the population that is applying to foreign universities are the population of students who are really good in English, which means they have excelled academically somehow to have good grades. So if your school grades are really bad, I doubt that you will have enough English knowledge to apply to American universities. So what does this mean? This means all the people you are competing against have the same exact GPA as you. Will it make you stand out? Not really. Your GPA doesn't make you stand out. Does having a lower one make you less chances? Not really. GPA is not considered like before because it's not standardized. What does this mean? Your GPA cannot be compared to my or somebody else from another school because each country, each school has a different system of GPAs. So GPA, not really, doesn't matter. Let's go to the second thing, if it matters or not. Let's go to the SAT. As an international student, does SAT matter? Absolutely. Now, let me tell you why. As an international student, or as any student across in the entire world, sometimes students cheat. What do I mean by cheat? It means they put whatever they want in the extracurricular section, whether they did it, whether they didn't do it. And one thing that gives them authenticity as an international student is your SAT score. Now, what do I mean by this? If I see a student that says internships, extracurricular here, extracurricular there, I can see that with all the students in Uzbekistan now. I have reviewed about 10, 20 students that I know, like their applications. And one thing I noticed is that all of these kids are great, doing internships in the Ministry of Education, did volunteering in Ibrat camp. These things are all the same for everybody else. So that's why to give yourself authenticity and to put yourself a little above your competition, you kind of need SAT as an international student. As a domestic student, you have AP classes. You have other things that authenticate your application already, which you don't have to rely on SAT. But as an international student, yes, you kind of do have to rely on SAT. It doesn't mean you cannot get in without it. It just means that to have a good chance of getting in, you need SAT. Now, let's go to your extracurricular section. Guys, extracurricular section, please try to do this. Try to follow this formula. If you guys want, you can write it down. You can do whatever you want, but you need to follow this formula if you want to get into a good university. Now, when I say this, I take note to everybody. I don't want everybody to have the same exact one, but within what I say, it's going to be different for everybody, no matter how you think. So let's say whatever major you are, you need to have at least 2 to 3, at least worst case scenario, 2 to 3 activities that are related to your major in your activity section. What do I mean by this? Let's say you are a pre-med. You're applying for biology in Harvard University or whatever university for that matter, and you have to fill out your extracurricular section. One thing I want to see is that you did internship at your local clinic. I don't know. Second thing, you volunteered on weekends in old like elderly home care, like some type of, I don't know, like a elderly care or nursing homes. They have so many of these different things. I have to see things that are related to your major or what you want to pursue, because it shows consistency. That's what a lot of university look for. And then it should be something in your school that you're part of, like that's something that you engage in your school automatically. And another thing these top universities look for is your leadership skills. What do I mean by this? If you're in a club, be the president of the club, founder of the club, co-president, vice president. You need to have leadership goals, because all these schools, what they're looking for is they're looking for the top 1%. They are looking for the top 1% to accept in their classes. So you need to make sure that you're above everybody else. Now, there's one more thing a lot of people don't do, but I advise you guys to. Now, what is this? What is your hobby? When a school says they want an all-rounded student, they really mean it. They're telling you that, hey, I want an all-rounded student that is good at everything, right? So if you only put education, I was the president of this, founder of this, they go, okay, this guy's showing off at this point. It's too much. So as you go down the list of your activities, 1, 2, 3, it has to get less important from academic side and more important on a personal level. Now, what do I mean by this? I mean, for example, me, one of my passion was playing soccer, right? I was on the soccer team, which I did include. Or let's say anything, poetry. Say that you were a member of the poetry club, and in the activity description section, say that you were like this was your passion. Or let's say you love going to taekwondo, karate, or you like going to the gym. Whatever your hobby is, something that makes you unique than everybody else, I want you guys to put it, because it adds a layer to your application. You know why I'm saying this? Because every single university, top university you go to, they have programs. What do I mean by programs? You can even look it up. They have karate programs, taekwondo, art classes, anything that you like really see as a hobby. Each school has little clubs or organizations that mention that. So when you tell an admissions officer, hey, I love this, and when I'm in your university, I will take a part in this. That's what a message that it sends. You have to build this image for your admissions officer that you are an all-rounded person that is not only about academics and books. You also have fun on the side. That's one most important thing that I had in my extracurricular section. I made sure that I was able to rank them properly and made sure that there's a good balance. Second thing, please do not put unbelievable hours. What do I mean by this? Sometimes kids go crazy just because they know they can lie. Or there's another thing. Sometimes I understand a lot of schools, they can give you some time off if you're doing really well in school, or if you're going to tutors. In Uzbekistan, some schools give you some time off saying, hey, you can concentrate on this, from what I know. And I understand that your hours may be real, but to an admissions officer, to my eyes, you are in school 8 hours a day. You have 3 hours of homework. So from what I see, you already have about 10 hours of 11 hours of schoolwork. So please make sure that the hours you are putting adds up, because if it doesn't, admissions officers are professionals. They already know like what you did and what you didn't do. So in order to make sure that you give yourself the best authenticity, you have to make sure that you have the good combination of extracurriculars, good hours, and make sure that you are showing all around it. And that does strengthen your application so much, like by a lot. Now let's go to the second thing. I mean, the fourth thing. So if I'm looking at your Common App as an admissions officer, the first thing I see is your name, your GPA, the most recent courses you are taking, your extracurriculars, and then I come to your personal statement essay. The most important one, the personal statement essay. Now let's talk about the personal statement essay. For the personal statement essay, a lot of people have so many misconceptions. People write about different things, but what is it really, and how do they judge how good your personal statement is? Number one, please do not be basic. You have to stand out. What do I mean by this? Every single time, whether you're writing supplemental essays, personal statement essays, anything you are doing for university, you have to think, you have to reflect. How would an average person who's from Uzbekistan or from any around the world who's applying would answer this question? So for example, let's say we're answering the personal statement. The most common topics go a personal injury, growing up poor. Like there's some topics that are so cliche that the admissions officer reads at least 100 of those a day, and it does not make you stand out whatsoever. So in order to make sure that you stand out from everybody else in terms of the personal statement and everything else, you have to always compare yourself to others, because it is a comparison game. your friend who's applying with you, they're your competition. Like, it doesn't mean, oh, like, don't tell them and they don't tell you. You have to try to grow and push each other. But at the end of the day, you guys are competing with each other. So you have to make sure that you have the most unique application that you can think of for yourself. So I have made a video on the personal statement, but for those of you that didn't see that video, one thing that I always suggest students is show some type of growth or perseverance. What do I mean by this? It doesn't have to be something big. Some people, some rich people, like some rich people that I know, they never talked about perseverance. They never had to go through being poor. They never had to go through immigration. They never had to go through their parents working hard. So do they still get into these big universities without the fact that they're already rich? Yes. Their essays still are good. Now, what type of essays do those people write? Because you have to think, as an people from Uzbekistan, I have read about 50 essays in the last 2 days to people who send me their essays. And I have seen so many essays that are so identical to one another. And one thing that they all do is that they don't show who you really are. You try to show off. Never show off in your personal statement, guys. Never show off. What do I mean by never show off? Don't tell me that, oh my God, I became the best in my class. I'm the best in my class. Or I have the highest IELTS grade in my class. Or I have the highest SAT grade in my class. Those accomplishments, I can already see in your statistics section. For example, if you want to make sure that you get in, you have to make sure that you display a variety. What do I mean by variety? You guys need to stop talking about the same thing over and over and over again. And one thing that I saw that was really popular was, guys, do not mention, unless it's too important, do not mention your future career or why you're choosing that in your personal statement essay. I'll tell you guys why. Like, you can, but it's in really rare occasions where it really is the punchline of your entire application. In every single university, you have the why us essay. If you already tell me why you're going to apply to which university in your personal statement, then your why essay is just you repeating yourself. If I see you repeating yourself, automatically there's something that's being taken away from you. Like, there's a side to you that I didn't see just because you talked about the same thing twice. Again, let's say you want to say, oh, I am a hardworking student who works really hard. I am a student who gets good grades in your personal statement essay. I'm sorry, but when I looked at your application, I saw your GPA. I saw your SAT. I saw your extracurriculars. I already know what type of student you are. You don't have to tell me. Tell me something that I didn't see through your extracurriculars. Tell me something I didn't see through your GPA. Tell me something I didn't see through your other things that you have. That's what will make you unique compared to everybody else. Because everybody is very robotic. People are repeating the same information over and over and over and over again. Please do not do that, because it's not going to give you a layer in your application. I never repeated the same thing twice in one university. What do I mean by this? For example, of course, I copy pasted my why us essays through different universities because I followed one template that I created and I kind of went with that. But it doesn't mean that I wrote the same thing for like each university. I said, oh, I am the best. I am the best. No, like, give a layer to your application. But that's what you have to do for personal statement. Now let's go to the supplemental essays. What is the purpose of the supplemental essays in general? You have to, every single time, again, when you look at these questions, please look at from the admissions officer side. To the person who's reading 100 essays a day, you have to ask yourself, what is that about me that they should even accept? Like, that's the question. Any one of you can be accepted to these universities. Any one of you. There's nothing, even if you don't have SAT, you can get accepted to these universities just by your essays and supplements. If you have the best combination of everything, there's nothing says that you can't. Let's talk about them one by one. Let's talk about the background, community, and diversity essay. I didn't want to post anything about this one because I wanted to talk about this one here in person. When we talk about background, community, diversity essay, you know what people do? People highlight diversity. And they go, I have to talk about my interaction with other races. And all my fellows from Samarkand, they go, I remember this one time I went to Registan and I was a tour guide. And there was this person who was lost and I helped them just, come on, guys. Everybody wants to talk about the tour guide, being a tour guide. Like, you have to make sure that this is, again, unique to you. Like, if I'm thinking about the college admissions purposes, let's see this. Let's say I have 100 students I need to accept. Each one needs to have a different background, different unique traits that they have that they went through as a child that will contribute to their thing in university. So this is what I would talk about if I were in your guys' shoes. Let's say you're from a village, from like a mahalla. I'm from a very like village countryside. From Uzbekistan in Samarkand. I'm from a very countryside village, and this is something that I did mention. I said, growing up, everybody knows everybody. That's the community I'm in. Everybody knows everybody. Like every single person you see outside, you have to say hi to. You have to greet them, or else it's disrespectful. Like for example, I compared to America a lot. I said, hey, in my American community, I don't have to say hi to everybody I see, even if they're my neighbor. Sometimes I don't even know who my neighbor is that lives next to me. But in Uzbekistan, everybody in one district knows each other. They know somebody else. Like that's the community that you want to talk about. What is another thing that you can talk about? You can talk about yourself. Like let's say you grew up in a house with 4 children. You can say, I grew up with like 2 siblings, 3 siblings. I had a sister, I had a brother, and then this happened, and then this happened. It's just things that make you unique. Please do not just go straight into the diversity essay. That is the one mistake that a lot of people make. Let's go into the next. Give me 1 second, guys. I am so sorry. I'm so sorry, guys. Just give me 1 minute. I'm sorry, I just had to change rooms. Okay, all right. Let's talk about the intellectual experience essay. This essay, a lot of people also think too deep. They think academics. Every single time I've seen people write about this, they think about academics. They go, okay, how can I show them that I'm Einstein? That is not what it is. It's these things that you see outside and then you just sit and think. You go, why is that happening? I'll give you guys one example, something that I wrote. I was a psychology major. Like I applied as a political science and psychology major. And my psychology major side, this is what I said. Back in New York, I worked as a cashier in SATashkent supermarket. For those of you that know New York, I worked in Brooklyn SATashkent supermarket. And one thing that I talked about is that, hey, in one day, I take about 500 customers. And each one gives me different attitude. I give them the same customer service, same input, but different output. One gives me a tip. One curses at me. One tells me I'm not bagging their things right. One doesn't even acknowledge I'm there. One doesn't even say hi to me. I was like, why does that happen? I was like, this is something that I've always been like. Sometimes there's just nothing you can do to change how people think. So I talked about how I did an experiment where one day, as a cashier, I would just sit quiet. The second day, I would just constantly engage with customers. Would the amount of tip I get change really? Would it change a lot? Would it not change? So that is something that I wrote. You can write about anything that you find pretty interesting that in your daily life that is related to your major somehow. If it is, if it's not, it's fine. That gives you your like a layer to your thing. Like, does this person really think? Like, how do they think? What do they think about? So when you talk about intellectual experience, please try to give me a real life scenario. Do not give them like saying, oh, I remember in my physics class when we were talking about Newton's third law that X, Y. Come on, guys. They know that you guys really don't know this stuff because you're not a Nobel laureate. Like, you're not a graduate. They know that you guys are 17, 18-year-olds who are just entering university. They know you finished high school. So you don't have to give them something too like out of the books. Like, just give them something that happened in your life. That's what will really set you apart. Because when I was writing it, I saw with my friends, right? And they were writing about these crazy theories. They were like, oh, do you know Socrates' theory and political theory, X, Y, Z? And I was just like, okay, I'm going to just write about something that is like really normal. So all of my intellectual experience essays is about me being a cashier at SATashkent supermarket. Okay, why us essay? Now, I did talk about this before, but I want to talk about some things about the why us essay that I didn't mention in my last video that I do want to mention to you guys right now. In the why us essay, now listen very, very carefully, guys. In the why us essay, you have to place yourself in that university. You have to place it. let me give you an example. Let's say that I am currently, take one of your teachers. Just imagine one of your teachers, or imagine you are the admissions officer and you are accepting students into your own school, your school. I don't know a lot of schools in Uzbekistan, but let's say Cambridge Lyceum that everybody attends, the Cambridge International, if I'm not mistaken. Let's take that into let's say that you already know everything in the school, right? So if somebody's applying to that school and they say, hey, on Sundays, I want to go to the bakery shop that happens in the first floor. You go, whoa, how does the student know? And then you start picturing the student walking in campus. If you're able to place that student in campus, like an admissions officer can see you, that is your first goal. That's your first goal. Place yourself in campus. Those admissions officers, they know every single inch of the university. They know, like, for the most part, they know where everything is because they walk around there. They work in the campus. They know about the programs because, hey, in one day, they read about 100 applicants and they kind of know all the programs. They are trained to do so. They are trained to know the programs and professors for most of the part. So what do I mean by this? By this, I mean, please make sure that you are able to place yourself. Now, what is the template I use? I'm going to give you guys the template that I use. It doesn't mean it's the correct template because, hey, I was rejected from a lot of Ivy Leagues. It doesn't mean that it's the correct template, but it's a template that did work for me. This is how I followed. First, I talked about my background. I said this. This is what I said. I said, nature versus nurture. This is the academic question I started with. Nature versus nurture. You guys can look this up. Nature versus nurture. I said, are the characteristics we have hereditary, meaning are we born with them, or do they get shaped as we go? I said, like, how is that? And once I did that, I connected that to me being an immigrant from Uzbekistan. That's my background, a little one-paragraph background. After I gave my little background, I started straight into my why us essay. I said, hey, your university offers this class that has to do with political science. Now, how did I do this? I said, I came from Uzbekistan, right? I said, when I was in Uzbekistan, I was about 10. And I said that I never saw any political parties. I never saw, like, in TVs, you don't see political debates a lot. You don't see a lot of political discussions in Uzbekistan. And I said, when I came here, that changed. Like, I saw political discussions everywhere. I was like, what is the difference, like, between these two countries that I've witnessed throughout my life? I was like, what is the psychological reasoning behind people's choice in making the decision to whether participate in government or not participate? So I focused on that. And then you know what I did? I found a course or a professor that has been doing research on voters behaviors. And I combined that and I put it on. And in my conclusion, this is what I said. I said, as somebody from Uzbekistan, and since Uzbekistan is really underrepresented in many of these prestigious universities, I mentioned a club. A lot of times they had either like a multicultural club, they had some type of club that has to do with being culture, diversity. And I mentioned that because right now they cannot see what country you're from anymore because your ethnicity section is now blocked off. So the only way to really show your ethnicity is through your essays. You got to tell them, hey, I'm from Uzbekistan. This is my culture. Like, and give them as much as things as possible. I have so many examples right now, but I just don't want to give it because I've seen students write it. So I don't want everybody to copy what my students wrote. Like, a lot of the students that I know wrote. So I'm not going to mention them, but there's a lot of things that you guys can do to show all these different things. Okay, so this is the Why Us essay. Now, the next thing that I want to kind of focus on a little bit is it worth it? Now, what do I mean by is it worth it? Is it worth going to a top university, studying all this, like going through the hardship, the academic rigor? Like, the student life is really, really tough sometimes. What do I mean by this? It means, like, sometimes you have midterms, finals, and there's a reason. There's a reason that prestigious universities are harder than the other universities. Now, I'll explain to you why and how that is. A lot of times you have curves. What do I mean by curves? If one student gets 60, one student gets, let's say if 10 students get 65, 10 students get 65, one gets 70 and one gets 60, right? That one student, even if they got 70, they'll get an A because they're the top of the curve. The professor is going to create a curve based on how students did. So you do well. When you're at a more prestigious university and more selective university, that curve is really hard because all the kids you're up against are really smart, meaning they're all going to score at least like 85, 90s, or at least top. So you have to make sure that you beat them. It's all about being above average when you're in university to get the best grades possible. And yes, this differs from department to department based on your major and the classes you're taking. But this is it. Another thing, it's definitely worth it because of the network you're making. Hey, let's you go to Harvard, right? The people you're next to are either one of two things. Either they're super filthy rich that they have a building named after them, or their parents went to Harvard, or they have donated so much money, like they're in good financial status, meaning that they're already millionaires or they have businesses. Those people you want to make friends with. It's networking. The second thing is the geniuses, the people who don't have money, but they are so smart that they were able to get into these universities. When you surround yourself with such people, automatically you start growing as a person. When I say education is the same. What do I mean by this? In Psychology 101, I learned the same thing as Harvard as I learned in, I don't know, one of the worst universities. Like, it doesn't matter which university, but I'm going to learn the same thing. But my environment, because if your purpose is only education and you're like, okay, I just want to get as much knowledge as possible, like knowledge, just stay in Uzbekistan and live in the library. Live in the library for 5 years and you're going to get more knowledge than any American student that you can think of. The point of the education and higher education or like these prestigious universities is the network, the people that you're going to meet that is going to really put you up. Let's say later in life, I want to become a lawyer. I already have friends in Hopkins that are super rich and their parents have law firms. So I'm really good friends with them and they're like, oh, like you're really good at debate. Like I know you from class, like this. And I know that when I graduate, they can offer me job from their parents' like law firm. At the end of the day, networking. America loves to sugarcoat everything. Like, you know, in Uzbekistan we say tanish bilish, and it's like really bad thing. In America, they just sugarcoat it and they say networking. Tanish bilish is not a thing. It's networking. And that's how people really get by. But it's the same thing. We still have that in America. And the best way to do that is go to a prestigious university. I talked about the downside. Okay. Oh, no, I didn't talk about the downsides of going in. A lot of hours of studying. Sometimes you're going to be so stressed. If you have too much academics, you're not going to have time to socialize, meaning a lot of times you're studying, and you don't have time to talk to a lot of people. You have to sacrifice a lot of things. Like me personally, sometimes I have no time to even call my family and talk to them for a lot of time because I'm like, I'm sorry, I have to go to class. I have to do this. I have this. I have the deadline coming up for this. And you always got to be on top of your things. Another thing is, guys, please, there's one thing that I want to stress. Please be ready when you come here because a lot of people, when they just come from Uzbekistan, they're just coming from IELTS and SAT classes, learning they're not used to learning biology, physics, and different things that they come here and they're in shock. Whatever major you're choosing, after January, after you're done with your college applications, please start taking elementary courses in that. So you have some, even in your own language, take it in Russian, Uzbek, whatever. Because once you come here, it's going to give you that background knowledge you need in order to excel in those classes. So it's not everything is new to you because a lot of times you come to a class, 400 kids in a big lecture hall. Professor says, walks out. You're on your own. You got it. Like, sure, you can contact the teacher's assistant, TA, but a lot of times you're on your own. You got to learn on your own. So it's better to be prepared. And yeah, that was the university life that I talked about. Let me just think if there's anything else that I wanted to mention. I guess no. I guess that was everything that I wanted to talk about. I have one thing that I want to do. If anybody here by December 15th, if anybody ends up getting 1500 plus SAT or already has 1500 plus SAT, that wants like reviews on their essays for free. I'm not going to charge anybody anything. I know I'm a little busy right now because I'm going to Uzbekistan tomorrow. Like tomorrow is my flight. So I've been packing a lot. So I have some people who send me their essays that I haven't reviewed yet, which I will get to. But if you get a 1500 plus SAT and you're applying to Ivy Leagues and you want essay review on like supplements or personal statement essays, free of charge. I'm not going to charge you anything. And you just want like second look, I'll give it to you. Just contact me. I will get in a Zoom call with you like accordingly because I'm going to be in Uzbekistan for the next 2-3 days. I'll be traveling. But once I'm there, I will find my time and I will give you guys just like basically a lot of like information on what you can edit and what you cannot edit. So this is one thing I'm offering for a lot of students because I understand that, okay, I'm going to give you guys for real. Yes, sir. You can be like, okay, you were from America. You probably had, no. In America, these like one-to-one consultants and these people cost a lot of money. Sometimes they cost like $50, $60 an hour. So I couldn't really afford it. Like, I know I'm in America, but I still couldn't afford it because my parents had their own thing. And when I was going to high school, all of my rich friends, they all had people who were really helping them, like, and like in any way they can. So I understand that some people have this financial status or financial situations where they cannot really afford to hire these people to kind of look after their essays. I'm not gonna, like, for the people who get 1500 plus, nothing. I require nothing from you. You just send it to me. I give you feedback and I give you honest thing on your chances of getting top schools. But yeah, this is something that I had offered, like last minute offer, because the reason I say 1500 plus SAT is because I don't have a lot of time. I cannot take like 200-300 students. I have to like help those students that are like really in need and have like a great shot at getting to these schools. This is why I'm saying that 1500 plus SAT. But if you're really sure about your essays and you think you're really good and you don't have SAT, send it to me. I'll take a look. And if I think that you have a shot, I'll give you a call and we can discuss that later also. But with that being said, I guess we are done. Now we can start the Q&A section if we have any questions. But this is everything that I had prepared for you guys today.
Yeah, you really cooked. The presentation was amazing. So I think people can start giving their questions in the comments of the last post, and let's wait for a minute, and then I think questions are already coming. Some people are asking why Johns Hopkins, and for the Johns Hopkins, what do you think? Since you are experiencing life in Hopkins and you know it like personally, what do you think something unique about Hopkins that cannot be found on the internet?
Okay. All right. First, I'll answer the first question: the why Hopkins, why I chose Hopkins from all these prestigious universities I got into. That's the first one that I want to mention. I didn't get financial aid scholarship like a lot of people do. A lot of people in Uzbekistan, when you guys get in, you get full financial aid, meaning the university will cover all of your needs. Me, since I'm in America and I couldn't get that need, I couldn't apply, I had to rely on a lot of scholarships. I had to, because otherwise I didn't have a shot. So I relied on scholarships. So the only two schools that gave me full ride that I didn't have to pay for anything was Johns Hopkins University and NYU. Those two schools gave me full ride, told me, hey, this is the scholarship we're giving you. You don't have to pay anything. We'll cover your tuition, dorm, everything. So I am in New York. I am from New York. And I wanted to go to a real campus. I'm sorry, but I'm in the city already. I've lived in New York City for a long time. I am kind of I'm tired of the city. So I wanted to go somewhere else. So for that reason, I chose Hopkins over NYU. But when it comes to others like UPenn, they gave me full tuition, but they didn't give me full ride. Same thing with UChicago. They gave me full tuition, but they didn't give me full ride. Like, dorm and food. For that reason, like for financial, because I want to be a lawyer. So I want to go to law school, and law school is very expensive. For that reason, I was like, I wanted to save my money and I wanted to like go to a better school, law school later. For that reason, I chose Hopkins because it was the best fit. And for your second question about what can you find about Hopkins living there compared to other people, one thing that you will start to notice is the personality of people. Like each university, believe it or not, has their own personality. What do I mean by this? When you're in campus, you see a lot. For example, when you're in Harvard, you see a lot of arrogant people. Egotistical, arrogant. They think they're the best in the world, which they are. I'm not taking anything, but this is typically the personality that they portray. One thing I would say is the personality. You never get that, and in any application, if you portray the personality that Hopkins students have, you get it. This is the type of students Hopkins students are. They're the type of students who are not show-offs, but are really smart. They keep everything under they're really socially awkward people. If you talk about being socially awkward or like not really talking out to people, but then you found something and like you like if you find your own people, that's what Hopkins is all about. Finding your own people, they keep on telling us. So finding your own people, because everybody in Hopkins is kind of socially awkward and people don't really talk to each other. So which is, I would say, the unique part about Hopkins.
Very good, very good. So we have some other questions. So what do you think about taking gap year? I think you didn't take any gap years, right?
No, I did not take any gap years. I didn't take any gap years, but what do I think about taking a gap year? Okay, first of all, as somebody who's applying from Uzbekistan as an international student, I definitely think that if you are going to, like, for example, if you don't have any SATs right now, and you just want to go to a top university, I would say, okay, just wait another year because you're not going to lose anything. If you have time, I would say wait up, get maximum SAT, start your college application from early on, and maximize your chances and then apply. However, I would still suggest for those who, let's say you have about like 1400 or 1300, it differs from perspective to perspective, but I don't think you should just like waste it because just because you have 1500 SAT the next year doesn't guarantee your shot at a top school. So my recommendation, honest recommendation for you guys is do this. First of all, look at your own chances and try to understand that, hey, if I get into this university, can I transfer later? So I would suggest that if you really have to and you're really in a bad situation, it's okay to take a gap year. Don't be ashamed because all the people from Uzbekistan, like a lot of people that I know from Uzbekistan took a gap year. Like the kids in Yale, if I'm not mistaken, they all took gap years. And it's totally fine to take a gap year. However, I wouldn't waste a year just on like something like useless. If you can go and transfer later from that university you go to, let's say you want to go to like Arizona State University for a year and then transfer to Yale, go ahead, do that. I would suggest that over just straight up completely taking a gap year. But yeah.
Okay. So the next question is, what thing would you do different if you were applying again?
Oh my God, I still have a lot of regrets till this day. One thing that I regret is, well, this is a regret that you guys cannot have that I have. I have a few regrets. I'm just going to mention them really quickly. First regret is me mentioning that I was Asian. Before affirmative action, Asians have really no shot at getting into the top schools because it's like stereotyped. Asians are smart. Asians get 1600 SATs. Asians tend to be smart. So a lot of Asians apply and they're at a disadvantage compared to like Hispanics, Blacks, Native Americans, any other race you can think of. Asians are underrepresented. I mean, like mostly represented. So we can. If I could go back, I would say I do not want to tell them what my race was. This is the first thing I would do. The second thing I would do is I would focus more on my essays and like really focus because I thought that I had too much school work. I was taking 4 AP classes at that time when I was doing my college applications. So I used to wake up 5 a.m. in the morning and go to sleep like 10 p.m. and get 5 hours of sleep and just be like straight working on like classes, essays, and all that. And another thing that a secret that I want to reveal that I don't think anybody knows that I did not explicitly mention is I went SAT optional. Now, hear me out, everyone. Hear me out. I went SAT optional. I did not submit SAT to any of the universities that I applied to. Now, let me give you guys a reasoning behind this. When I was applying to universities, I did not have 1580. I had 1480. I went test optional because I was like, okay, I have a better shot at getting in without SAT. So I didn't do it. And then once early decision results came out, I got so scared. I did ED to 4 schools because I was a national college match finalist. And once I got deferred from 4 schools, I got so scared and they were like, send me a letter of continued interest. So I was like, what if I have to take a gap year? What if I get waitlisted? I have to send them something new about myself. So out of fear, I took the SAT. I studied for the SAT and I took the SAT. So the 1580 I got, none of my universities saw the 1580. Okay. They didn't see the 1580. So I did get into all these schools without SAT. That goes to show that you can get in. You just have to play your game right and you have to make sure that you put everything right. But the 1580 SAT I have, it was never submitted to any university, just so the people are not misled.
Interesting. Someone is asking, you skipped the honors section in your presentation. Can you elaborate more on that?
Yeah, honors are very, very important, especially for schools like Harvard. If you've noticed, one thing that I've noticed about Harvard is everybody goes to Harvard is really good at one thing. They are champions at something, national, international, whatever. They're really good at one thing. And for like schools like Harvard, one thing that gets into consideration so much is your honor section. How well have you achieved? What have you achieved in your life? So in that section, I would suggest do not, please, I have seen this so many times. There's nothing against this organization, but a lot of people say Ibrat Camp, they put Ibrat Camp. It's totally fine. It's a good organization. I'm not saying anything. They give so much opportunities, but please do not put that because everybody's putting that, and I do not consider that honors. When I say honors, I mean an Olympiad you won or a competition you did. Your certificate you got from an organization, it's not. When it says honors, please try to mention something that you achieved, like a competition, a tournament, something of that sort that you did, not just anything that you just cooked up and you just put it up there. Please do not do that because it will bring your chances down if you don't have the right things. So please make sure that you have national or school-based recognitions. And again, one thing, the system is rigged. People cheat. Okay, what do I mean by this? People put the things that they didn't do. So does that mean you're supposed to do it? Hey, if the system is rigged and everybody else is doing it, why should you stay like thing? So take that as a lesson and be like, okay, like what can I do to maximize your chances? And make sure that you play the cards right. That's all I'm going to say when it comes to honor section.
Okay, good. Let's look up some other questions. Okay, we had a question. What values that many students in Johns Hopkins have? What do you think the values that all the students and the university itself have? Their all values.
Okay. Values. When it comes to values, the only thing that I believe Hopkins looks for is Hopkins has like these weird models, but you just have to like envision your future. You have to tell them, like, you have to give them like as much about your future as possible. They really hate when you're undecided major. They really hate when you're undecided. They love when you are decided and you know what you want to do and you have a vision for your future. That's one value that they value the most. You have to have a vision for your future. So if you're applying as an undecided major, remove that for Hopkins, because Hopkins wants you to apply to a major. They want you to. And another thing that I did very cleverly that I don't really tell people is a lot of the universities I applied to, my major changed based on the university. Now, what do I mean by this? Hopkins is a pre-med school. Everybody who applies is a biology major, ChemBE, biomedical. I applied as a pre-law major to Johns Hopkins University. In one day, if they read 100 applicants, 1 is a pre-law, 99 is pre-meds. So in order to make myself stand out, I applied to different majors sometimes depending on the university, because I was like, okay, what subject are they really bad at or do not have a lot of students that they would want to add like a section, like a layer to their application? So you know what I did? I just went on and some of them, like when I was doing for Harvard, it was really tricky because they're good at everything. But when I was doing like Yale is good at political science. So I didn't say I was doing political science there. I said something else. So each university, my major changed a little bit just because I knew that like each had their own like values and different things. So please make sure that you do your research and you're like applying very cleverly to these universities.
And here's the question arise, like a lot of people build their application on according to their major and stuff, right? So they kind of put things together and make a perfect pyramid or something. And if you change your major, won't that affect it? Like, so you are talking about, let's say, economics, and your application is built on economics, or let's say economics with law or something, and then you change it to something else. Don't you think that's gonna play negative role?
Of course. And I totally understand this. And I will tell you what I did in a lot of these situations. Personally, in high school, I kind of slept in high school. Like I was in high school so much that I joined every possible club that my high school offered. And I was on every, like when it was online, especially when 2020 hit, coronavirus hit, I was a junior, like sophomore, junior in high school. So I joined so many different clubs and things across the world with different majors. So every single time I was doing my Common App section, I had, hey, pre-med major, extracurriculars, pre-law major, I had different extracurriculars. I did a lot of things in high school. So I changed up my majors based on that, and I built my application based off of it. So like a lot of times people do one uniform application and they just like shotgun it, like, hey, I hope I get it. If you play your cards right and you make sure that you put the right extracurriculars where you want to, write essays, depending on the university, you're going to get in. That is, I think, the one that secret that I used to get into the university, because hey, like who's gonna apply as a pre-law in Hopkins? Like who's gonna apply as a pre-med in UChicago? UChicago is a political science school. I applied as a pre-med there. I got in. See, nobody, when I think about University of Chicago, I think about politicians, international relations, history. I think about social sciences. Nobody thinks medicine when they think of Chicago. I applied as a medicine pre-med and I got in. So you see, you have to make sure that you know how you're playing your cards. That's one good advice that I would give students. Like, play your cards right.
Okay, good. And if you look at the comments, there's been a question sent, and can you explain and show how you approach this supplemental? If you want, you can answer that question.
Can you please just tell me the supplement? because I cannot see the chat. I don't know which chat it is. Sorry.
I think it's like it's the comments of the last post. I think
Let's
it's from
go.
Penn. How will you explore community at Penn? Consider how Penn will help shape your perspective and how your experience and perspective will help shape Penn. So
Yeah.
how would you how did you approach these kind of questions?
I wrote about quid pro quo. If you guys know what it is, it's called quid pro quo. I do something for you, or you do something. Like there was the saying, whatever it was. So with these universities, I approached as what would all of my other friends say? My other friends would say, I would learn this from you, and I would give like since I have a background in this, I'm gonna add this to your campus. I was like, everybody writes about that. Everybody writes about how like everybody takes these prompts really literally and try to give the best answer. You have to answer the prompt in a creative way that nobody else does. So with that question, when it says, what can we do to you that I told her, this is what I said. I said, I'm 17 and I haven't really done anything in life. So I don't know what I can offer you guys, but you guys can offer me a lot of things, which I will give back later. This is what I said. I was honest in my application. I said, I'm young. I said, I'm 17. So I said, I don't have much to offer to UPenn, except the fact that I can bring a diversity to their community. But with the UPenn education in XYZ, I will be able to do this in life, which will help me contribute to UPenn's this. So when an admissions officer sits there and reads 1,000 essays and they read mine and they go, this kid says he doesn't know how he's going to contribute, but he knows that he will later. They go, okay, this is an honest response. Like he knows he's 17, he just answered it. And that's what they want. They want honesty with creativity combined. Like a lot of people force their essays and try to make themselves sound so smart, but that's what everybody else is doing.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Were you interviewed from any university you got in? And there's been a case like some universities choose like interview people, some like interview everyone, some interview selectively. And did you had any? And do you think it affects if someone didn't get an interview? Does it mean something negative?
I had a total of 14 interviews, 14 alumni. I applied to 32 schools and I had 14 interviews. I got an interview from 7 Ivy Leagues besides from Columbia. I didn't get an interview from Columbia. I got an interview from 7 Ivy Leagues. I got an interview from MIT, Stanford, UChicago, not Hopkins. Hopkins didn't offer it if I'm not mistaken. But I did get a lot of interviews. And no, do not be worried about interviews. What do I mean by this? Guys, when it comes to interviews, it's an alumni interview. Sometimes, like my MIT interview, I did EA to MIT. My MIT interview went so well. The guy at the end of the interview said, hey, you know what? I will write you the best recommendation ever so you get into MIT. You are what MIT is looking for. That's what the alumni said. I was so hyped. I was celebrating it already. I was telling my friends, I'm going to go to MIT, guys. I'm going to go to MIT. I'm about to get in. December comes, I get rejected. No, not rejected. I got deferred to regular. But one thing that I can tell you is, no, do not worry about interviews because they don't do too much. However, if you have a really good person who's interviewing you and they can write really good notes, it will give you a little advantage, but it will never put you at a disadvantage. And never think that they picked students who are better applicants. No, they pick students randomly based on if they have people in that section. So let's say there's 4 of your friends and let's say they picked a person with 1600 SAT. It was an accident. They didn't just pick him because he had 1600. It was random. They just picked it randomly and they took his name and they were like, okay, we're going to interview this guy. So never, ever think that interview is really. And if you guys like, I'll probably like, if I keep creating content, I'll tell you guys how to like approach interview questions, but please make sure that like, you're ready for any bizarre interview questions. There's some bizarre, like they will catch you off guard. They'll be like, in 10 years, if you lose everything you have right now, what will you have? Like, let's say it was my Harvard interview said, let's say in 10 years, you lose everything you have and you graduated from Harvard. What will you do? I told them, well, I didn't lose everything I have. I graduated from Harvard. So I might have lost everything, but I graduated from Harvard. I have a Harvard diploma. I have connections from Harvard. So can I lose anything when I go to a school like Harvard? That's what I told them. And then the person was like, okay. And then they just like backed off. But it doesn't matter how clever you answer those questions. Sometimes if the school's not going to accept it, they're not going to accept you. But please make sure that you're ready for those questions. They really want to like dig deep into your mind sometimes. But the most basic part of the interview is, who are you? what's something you do outside of school, and why are you choosing us? And do you have any questions for us? Just make sure. Americans love talking about themselves. Americans love, like, they really love when you give them the stage. So try to ask them more questions than they ask you. Get to know them more than they get to know you, and they will love you because they love, like, praising themselves and talking about themselves. So please make sure that you ask them more questions.
Good. Well, I think we're running out of questions. Good questions. I think there has been one. Can you give some hints about roommate essays? How would you approach them, and how would you recommend approach those questions?
Yeah, of course. With the roommate essays, it's always, there's one rule that I tell students to go by. What is something I cannot know about you unless I live with you? What is something I can know about you unless I live with you? For example, some kids say, every morning I wake up at 5 a.m. Okay, you can tell me that, and I will. If you come somewhere at 6 a.m., I already know that. I don't have to live with you to know that. How do you wake up? Does your alarm not work every morning, or do you forget to put the alarm? What is something about, or some people go, hey, I'm gonna put the alarm, but alarm will not wake me up. It will wake you up so you can wake me up, or something like that. Make some comedy, make something funny in there, but you need to make sure that it's something that I can only get to know you if I live with you. Like, for example, let's say that your feet smells, like something like that, something like bizarre, like put that in. Hey, like, who cares? Like, you have to make sure that all these other students, they're talking about how great. They're like, oh, hey, we're gonna pursue our love for education by studying for our midterms. Like, I'm sorry, but you're the 1,000th person that told them that today. So it has to be some things that are very unique about you, because you have to add another layer to your application at the end of the day. In order to add that layer to your application, you need to make sure that you do that. You give them bizarre answers because it's a bizarre question. What are you saying to your future roommate? Like, they're not literally asking you to write it. They want to learn something about you in that process. So your main goal is not to address your future roommate, but the admissions officer. So tell them something that only the person who are living with you would know. So for example, you can say something like, hey, at nighttime when I'm listening to my AirPods and my AirPods are locked in, all you can hear is Who's Gonna Carry the Boats by David Goggins, or something like that. Make something funny or bizarre that nobody else would write, and that's what will get you in. Like, trust me, risk it. Taking risk is worth it. Some people say it's too risky if I write this, but when it comes to Ivy Leagues, you need to take risks because too many people are afraid to take those risks and write something that nobody else would write. So they just become another, like, random applicant that doesn't stand out at all.
Okay, good. I think you applied to, I don't know, 4 or 5 schools in early rounds. So can you explain to the audience how that happened, and is it possible for international students as well?
I think maybe Posse was internet. I don't think so, but I did Questbridge. Questbridge is in National College Match. It's an organization that helps students who are first generation students or locum. So I'm a first generation student. So if you're a first generation student or something, they will help you, but you have to go through rounds. You have to become a finalist first. You have to go through different rounds, interviews, rounds. And once you become a finalist, you get to apply to up to 12 ED schools. 12. Maximum is 12. So you can apply to 12 early decision schools only from their partners. They have about 50 partners that they have. So you have to choose one out of those, and you have to apply to that. You have to apply to those 12 universities. So I did that. And I know why I got deferred from all 4, because when I applied, the deadline was August. So in August, I had no idea about the college application process. If you see my essays for my early decision round, they were shit. Like, they were literally so bad that if I look at it right now, I would never let anybody write an essay like that, because I didn't know what colleges were looking for. So I just wrote that. So I ruined my chances of getting into Columbia, Princeton, Yale, and MIT in my early decision round, just because I wrote a really bad personal statement essay, really bad supplemental essay, because I had no idea. And then through September, October, November, December, that's when my learning process of the admission cycle started. And that's how I was able to do it. And there's a lot of people on the internet. Next Admits, the Gohar, he graduated from MIT, Limmy Talks. These people are people who graduate from these top schools who have a lot of knowledge. I recommend you guys follow those people on Instagram and just make sure that you keep up to date with what they're saying, because they give you really, really valuable advices every single time they post a video. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. I think we don't have that worthy questions for now. So I think our session is about to come to an end, and I would ask you to, I would ask you the last question. It's our classic questions. When people, I think people ask from you many stuff about admissions, about anything, and what is the question that you usually expect but you usually don't get?
Oh, okay. That is very interesting. I guess one question that people never ask me is like, they never ask me, how do I stand out from other applicants when they're showing me their application? I want them to ask me that question. I don't give question that answer unless they ask me that question. How do I stand out from other? This is what people say. Is my essay good? I'd say, yeah, your essay is good. Like, will my essay get in? Probably. Like, one thing that they never do is they never ask me, like, is it like, what do I need? Like, because each applicant, whether you think it, each applicant has a unique fingerprint, like their own fingerprint. And like, you can analyze it and tell if that student is going to get in or not and what they need to change. A lot of times students are very ignorant and people don't like criticism. A lot of times when I tell students, hey, your thing is really, really bad, go rewrite this, go do this, because I have some, like, over the summer I was teaching in a center and I just have few friends like that I have that are applying to. And when I tell them, like, when I criticize them, I tell, hey, like, your essay is really bad. They don't take criticism. I want you guys to be able to take criticism and use it appropriately, because a lot of times people are so arrogant. People are like, oh, like, what do you know about it? Like, I'm doing this. But there's two levels. Please do not make these mistakes. Sometimes your essay goes through so many people that it's no longer the same essay. The essay I wrote, once my teachers reviewed it and edited it, it became a completely different essay. And I hated that essay because it no longer told them who I was. So take criticism, take people's comments into consideration. But one thing you need to know is that each person has a different mindset and different process. For example, let's say I just gave you guys advice, and let's say 2 days ago or yesterday it was Parizoda. But let's say Parizoda gave you another advice. It doesn't mean Parizoda's advice is wrong or mine is wrong. All it means is that we had different ways of getting admission. So take both of ours into consideration and make your own opinion about it. Never take one person's word for it and say, okay, this person is 100% correct and he's wrong. So when people ask me for advice, please, I want you guys to understand this. My advice is not 100% correct. I'm not an expert. I'm not an admissions officer sitting there. I'm just somebody who got in, just like you guys, who applied and who did all these things. But I'm not an expert. So please make sure that you are able to take criticism. That's the number one thing you need to do if you want to get into a good school.
Mm-hmm. So it was amazing. I think it was really hot today. The session was really good, and I want to thank you again for for agreeing to do this and for giving so much valuable information to our audience and helping so much people at the same time. So thank you. If you want to say your last words, we can end this session.
Yeah, thank you so much for you guys also for having me. I think that not a lot of people in Uzbekistan knew me just because I'm a domestic student, and you guys did give me a platform, which I am thankful for, because I think a lot of people didn't know me before, and because of you guys, everybody noticed me. Another thing is that this is not a promotion or like me trying to thank them, but I have a lot of but people who texted me who were part of SATashkent that told me about their SAT courses. Guys, SAT is a very important part. I'm not trying to like promote them or anything, but all I'm trying to say is if you can find a good SAT center and study there, like just try it out. I would say like definitely it's worth it. Even if you're thinking about taking a gap year or anything else, it's definitely worth it to keep studying SAT. And I really want to thank SATashkent for even having me. So to everybody else, like if you guys ever need anything, you guys can follow my channel and keep updated. I'll probably post some content for you guys. But other than that, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And as you are having a flight tomorrow, you'll be welcome in Uzbekistan, and maybe see you in live too, in person too.
Hopefully, yes.
And thank you again. See you.
See you. Bye.
Xo'p, endi hammamiz bilamiz, o'zimiz traditsiyaga sodiq qolgan holda keyingi spikerni guest qilishimiz kerak hozir. Xo'p, demak bugun sana 11. Xo'p, yana bir marta o'zi hozir chiqib ketishimcha Bobirjonga rahmat aytmoqchiman. Juda zo'r, realni zo'r qilishdi. Xo'p, bo'lmasa keyingi ertangi kunlik spikerimizni menimcha bir guess ko'rsalar ham bo'ladi. Kim deb o'ylaysizlar? Kim deb o'ylaysizlar ertaga bo'ladigan spikerimiz? Hozir sizlarga men hint beraman. Xo'p, Hind bu mehmonimiz o'sha universitetdan graduate qilishgan, ya'ni universitetni o'sha bitirishgan. Universitetni bitirishgan. Xo'p. Okay. Xo'p, juda ko'pchilik yana Go'zalxonni kutishyapti. Go'zalxon ham tez kunlarda ozgina kutib turasizlar, tez kunlarda chiqishadilar ham. Xo'p, keyingi speakerimiz o'sha universitetni bitirishgan. Ularda ham shu admissionsga related o'zlarini katta projekti bor. Juda ko'pchilik men uchun foydalanadi. Xo'p, kesib ko'rasizlarmi? Xo'p, and she is her okay. So she studied in NYU Abu Dhabi, and I think I will see the answer in the comments that it's Veronica Lee. Yeah. So tomorrow is going to be our guest is going to be Veronica, and hop, Veronikadan ertaga уже graduate qilib bo'lishgan. Perspektivlari men uchun boshqacharoq. Ya'ni 4 yil universitetdagi davrlarini boshdan kechirib bo'lishdi. Yangicha viewlar bor, yangicha o'zlarini ko'pchilik bo'lsa kerak borderless degan projekti bor. Menimcha o'zlari ham yordam berishadi o'quvchilarga. Hop, yangi demak insightlarni ertaga hozir soatini adashmasam soat 5 da bo'lishi kerak, ozgina vaqtliroq. Bo'lmasa ertaga Veronika bilan sessionda hammalaring bilan ko'rishguncha va hammalaringga bugun ham qatnashganliging uchun rahmat.